This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned.
I want to try
Arkansas
and do this from a
operated.
30,000 foot. I don't want to get down into the minutia
Sure.
of it because
Right.
I mean, this can honestly just sort of drag you down.
Yeah.
We're about 2.5 years into this. I mean, you talked during the last segment that this was something that needed to happen. The players need to be able to use their name, image, and likeness to profit. Okay. We just got a text, and you said that during the recruiting process, NIL comes up faster than maybe you anticipated.
Yeah, there used to be about 7 or 8 conversations you could be prepared for when it came to recruiting. You could have that talk planned, but NIL was not one of them until it became a thing, and now it jumps to the forefront. Most people don't want to lead with it because they don't want to appear superficial.
Don't appear greedy.
Yeah, or appear greedy or whatever. They want to ask some of the other questions. Do you have this major? Do you have this style of play? But it turns to NIL at some point in time. They just want to know what it is because they're as in the dark maybe as most people are because they've just never experienced it. So I think you just have to explain what it is. And it is ultimately up to the individual athlete to have a name, image, and likeness. And to brand themselves, because as coaches, we are insulated from that to not be involved in any of it. We have a completely separate wing of people that take care of that, and we make sure that we navigate them toward those people who are better at that than we are, that understand it.
Okay, so there aren't coaches coming in saying, well, we can get you X, Y, Z. We've got.
Oh, no, I think there's some coaches.
Really? Okay.
Oh, yeah, I think it's out there. I mean, it's in our game. I'm just speaking for our game, women's basketball. We have recruits that will say, I've talked to somebody, why aren't y'all doing that? And I said, well, first of all, it's against the rules. We cannot entice a recruit with the opportunity for name, image, and likeness. You can explain what you have. You can point them towards people that are currently on your campus and see if they might want to share what they're doing, but you cannot entice somebody to your campus with a name, image, and likeness agreement. You can share what you have and you can share what your current players are doing, and I think that's where sometimes it gets a little bit murky. Mm-hmm. But I do know for a fact there are people out there saying, from a coaching staff perspective, because right now, again, there's no rules to it. We had a couple of cases that were made public. They were sanctioned and still got to play in the NCAA tournament. So it wasn't really that harsh of a they got the players. The players played all the way through and went pretty deep in the NCAA tournament with people who they openly said had received impermissible benefits. So I think the one thing, and that word just came up, I think people have to understand there is still impermissible benefits. Just because you see a Razorback, you can't just provide a benefit for. You have to have an NIL with that person. You can't just give a free meal to a kid because, oh, that's a Razorback, I'm going to give him a free meal. There has to be a signed agreement prior to you doing that. So there is still some paperwork. There's still some things, and you still have to educate our kids so that they don't make an error out of naivety, other than just not understanding it. So it's a good thing. It's still a work in progress. It's not the boogeyman, but it's still a little bit mysterious.
So if we're recruiting DQ, you and I are going to go in and recruit DQ to come play basketball at University X, and she brings it up. You as the coach are going to go, okay, well, we have these people who can help you with this and explain it better. It's their department, so it's out of your hands at that point.
Yeah, I will make sure she knows she's not going to have to eat 35-year-old baseball gum. I can breach that subject and make sure she knows that so that she doesn't eliminate us. But yeah, it's set up that way so that we can get it to the experts and not have to be, we joked about this at the Final Four, some of my coaching buddies, as we were sitting around. In the last 3 years, we've had to be epidemiologists. Mm-hmm. We've had to be experts in so many things that none of us knew we were going to be when we signed up to coach. Now we have to be a finance major. We have to be a business, but there's so many new things that have come up that it's great that, we are at a university that has a complete wing, and you can just say, here's who you need to talk to them, schedule that time, and they are in their office working like we do in our office on basketball. They're constantly working in there on opportunities and people and presentations.
And they're the ones that would physically go to the athletes that are signed, sealed, delivered to the university and say, hey, we've got these opportunities for you. Okay, all right. So I'm going to throw a word at you, and I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what it is. And I don't. You may not know. Collective. Because what we get, and we get these texts all the time, and I'll use Devo Davis as an example just because he's top of mind. Devo said the other day that he was going to go, he's going to go test the NBA waters, but he's going to leave his option open to come back. So immediately we need to start a GoFundMe for Devo. So I mean, I can't put together a GoFundMe and go, here, Devo, take this.
Right.
That's not good.
There's got to be some, and collective is a term that you want to stay away from now. They're LLCs. They have to be. Yeah, the collective is a term that I think is what they call those the suitcase terms, and like Coke, or refrigerator, whatever. So there still has to be some services performed. You can't just do a GoFundMe and say, here, thanks for being a Razorback. There's got to be something on the other side of that thing, and there has to be a contract. That's where, again, now you can differentiate between if you take that and do that, that would have been an impermissible benefit.
Okay.
But if you say, hey, we're this company and we want you to do X, Y, and Z for this money, and it's comparable to what that would be, then you can do all those things. And that's where, I think some of the murkiness can be cleared up just by saying there's still a difference between impermissible benefit and an agreement that you've reached through a name, image, and likeness.
Okay, so that makes sense. That you've got an arm of the university that is actively working to get deals for athletes, and it's got to be in a sense a business transaction. There has to be some sort of, we like to say, ROI. There's got to be a return on investment. DQ just can't show up here. I give her $10,000 because she plays basketball at the university. Yeah,
but it's not part of the university. It's a separate entity. It's away from. It's like the foundation. It broke away from the foundation. There's a One Razorback LLC.
Right.
And it's not our Razorback employees. The people that are on our campus, the flagship, they're explaining to our players how to implicate tax implications.
Thank God you said that, because I get that question every day. What about the taxes?
It's a real thing. I mean, I've had a player walk up and go, "Who's this FICA guy that gets part of my money? Who's what is this?" And a $10,000 deal is really a $6,300 deal. I mean, I've heard stories other places of people because the player that was getting it was still 17, it raised a family's tax bracket, and they had tax implications that they had never had before because the money that came in for a result of one of their players raised their family's tax bracket up. So we have people on the university in our flagship that understand the legalities of contracts, so that players don't get into a contract that might be longer than they would like for it to be, or not be beneficial for them. So the education piece still lies with us, and we make sure that we have every kid involved with that, so that if they have an NIL, they've been through this and they understand how to best utilize their money and leave the university with not student debt, but with student wealth.
Right. And in a way, and I mean, I don't want to sound like an old man or a dad here, but in a way, you're getting an education in money management that you probably wouldn't have gotten until you got out into the real world.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I always used to give a book to all of our graduating seniors, The Millionaire Next Door. It's an unbelievable book about how a little bit of investment at an early age can really magnify. I used to give it to kids when they were seniors. Now I give it to them when they're freshmen, because they're making money. They're getting an amount of money that if they will invest wisely at 17, 18 years old, not all of it either, just a little bit of it, a percentage of it, how that grows. There's a table in this book that shows you how this amount of money invested at the age of 17 compared to the age of 24 looks when you're 65. It is mind-blowing to me. So when those kids see that, they're like, well, I've got $1,000 I've never had before. What if I put that in there instead of buying every pair of Jordans that comes out next week? And it's okay if that's what they want to do. But I do think we're going to see 10, 15 years from now these delayed gratification stories that we all get as coaches. Hey, thanks for teaching me that. I think we're going to get, hey, thanks for showing me that table, because as a result, I did put $1,000 into this fund. And here I am now. I'm going to pay for my wedding with it, or I'm going to pay for my first, my child's first car or whatever. So I think there's opportunities for us to teach and learn. And it is long overdue, and there's way more good than there is bad. Everybody tends to dwell on the negative side, but there's way more positives than negatives.
I'm going to ask you this, and it's an abstract question. It doesn't apply to you necessarily, but we're starting to see cases like this. I just want to get your kind of opinion on where we're going with a lot of this. But you get a player that is that's got an opportunity in 12 months that will spend 9 months on campus. 12 months later, they're going to be a professional at the professional level. They come in with a group. There are people that are now managing that particular player. We've seen it across the country. We've seen it here, obviously. Does that make it more difficult as a coach? Does it change the dynamic, the coach-player relationship at all?
Hasn't for me. I mean, I've talked to some people who it has, because it's more people to manage. And I think anytime you bring more opinions into a discussion, you're going to have more to manage. But I wouldn't use the word more difficult. I think you have to be a better organizer. You have to know. And the other part is, I usually say too, if that comes up, like, do you really want me talking to everybody? Or who's your point person?
Yeah, and that's like recruiting. I mean,
it's like recruiting.
Who's the point person?
Who's your point person?
Right.
And I think those stories, they're obviously out there. I think they are probably the ones that get talked about. They're probably a little bit more. Yeah, the guys that wrote Freakonomics are probably going to have a field day with some of this stuff someday. I'm sure you did. I'm not sure about DQ after finding out she just opened baseball cards for the first time, but we all had our candy X-rayed at a police station or at some place during, and we found out now all these years later there's really only 2 cases of that in the United States, but the myth grew to the point. So I think there's again more stories out there that probably aren't 100% accurate, but even to that case, it's probably something that's more the outlier than the norm.
Kids feel pressure now as paid athletes.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, it's got to be. It's not now that you're going to school for free, you're getting your education paid for, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now there's an amount of money tied onto it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think there's any debating that there are. I would maybe not more, but new types of pressure and more voices than they've ever had before.
Do people feel like they have more access through the player?
Sure.
And they feel like they not only have access to you, but your program and on and on and on.
Well, that's what they're paying for. A lot of people, I think, are paying for access and paying for engagement. And, I think that's part of the deal. You are investing. And we try to explain that to our kids. We've got to be prepared for all those things. And that's what the flagship does is, when you have a name, image, and likeness, you can't do that and then say, well, I get recognized everywhere I go. Well, yeah, you're trying to get recognized everywhere you go. And I'm not talking about our kids. I'm talking about some of these national ones that have millions of followers that are out there, doing it to build a brand.
I'll give you an example. I'm thinking of Livy Dunn down at LSU, the gymnast who everywhere she goes, she put 10,000 foot Walton Arena.
Extra security everywhere.
Yeah.
But you think you know what's coming. I've had this discussion with Kelsey Plum, who, if the name, image, and likeness would have been in place in 2016 or 17 when she was a senior, the number would have been, just pick a number on what it would have been valued at. And seeing what she went through without the name, image, and likeness, and then let's say just magnify it 2 or 3-fold, I can't imagine what this gymnast is going through. And there's going to be some people that say, if she didn't tweet about it all the time, that wouldn't happen. That's
part
pretty
of the deal.
simplistic.
But that's part of the deal.
It is part of the deal.
Chelsea, in a lot of ways, Chelsea went through that.
And there's a case coming. There's a pending class action suit that some of these kids that did not receive NIL money, they're going to get some back pay. It's going to happen. Yeah, it's going to happen. It's out there. You can Google it. I'm not breaking news anywhere. It's just not maybe mainstream yet, but there was a period of time after, I don't think any of us when we were watching the 95 championship thought that Ed O'Bannon was going to be the person that broke the NIL thing all these years later. But, when the O'Bannon case happened and the Austin case that followed it, all that stuff that happened in the legal system, there's another one that's coming. I don't know when it's going to happen, but there will be some people who benefit that those 2 or 3 years in between when the case was decided and NIL was implemented. There will be some of that happening.
We're talking with Coach Mike Neighbors. He's here for another hour and 10 minutes or so. Chuck Barrett's going to join us in about 10 minutes. This is a fascinating discussion. I didn't know that was happening. I knew about obviously about the O'Bannon case, which, for me personally, it broke up my my NCAA 14, and that's what upset me about that sort of thing. But I didn't know that athletes were going to be back pay, and I know everybody was upset. Actually, I knew one of the athletes that was in one of the video games. They got like a check for like $13.
Yeah, I don't know how much it's going to be. It's going to be hard to. But it's going to be more than $13.
I would think so.
Yeah, it's going to be more than $13. And like I said, you can get online and read about it. It's out there. It's not gone to trial yet, but it's been talked about on what it's going to involve and the premise of it, the reason they're doing it. So, it'll be a number of years before it's settled, but it's certainly something that people that are involved with athletes like that have heard about.
How much more difficult has your job gotten since you arrived? I mean, like you said, you're doing all of these different things, and like 10% of your job's the X's and O's part of it now. It feels like. Yeah,
but you're still wearing tennis shoes and shorts to practice and sweats, and I'm talking to you on a Thursday.
Yeah.
And, I'm never going to say that I have a hard job. There's too many people out there that have really hard jobs.
Okay.
It has gotten challenging.
Okay.
And it's simply because I'm not sure that I would, if we knew what we know now, I'm not sure that I had all the tools that would have made me a candidate to be the coach at this level. Because, that's not my sweet spot. That is not my sweet spot, talking about some of the things now that we have to. But because of how it happened, and we all started with a level playing field. Mm-hmm. Now, again, I was as prepared or better prepared at this part of the game than Gary Blair was. I use him as an example because he's one of my mentors, and I sat right next to him at his Hall of Fame induction the other day.
What
a class that he's a part of. He's going to be remembered as part of the greatest class to ever go in the Naismith Hall of Fame.
Class.
Not because of him. I told him that. I said, don't let people think it's got more to do with Dwayne Wade and Tony Parker
Dirk.
and Gasol and Dirk and even Becky Hammond. There's Coach.
Becky Hammond was in
let's
there.
go. But anyway.
But he's in there.
I'm not taking that away from him. But he had no more experience at dealing with transfer portal or NIL or dealing with COVID than I did. So going back to your question, I'll try to answer it. It's gotten more challenging because I don't think I necessarily had the skills that I would have said before. Make me an epidemiologist or an expert on social justice or an expert in finance. I didn't do so well in econ. Because I never could understand. Here's my whole problem with the econ class. I bought a book at the beginning of the year that cost $144. And I think I opened it twice, maybe.
And sold it for $40.
40? You went someplace. I sold it for 12. And I was like, I missed the chapter in the econ book that makes this book depreciate that much in that shorter period of time.
You want to get DQ fired up? Talk about selling books back.
Get analysis of every play, prop, and point at BetOnline. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to sign up and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE to receive your bonus. That's BLEAV. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts.